Hey everyone! Tonight we're exploring the sophisticated pastoral economy of the Turkic Khaganate and how an entire civilization organized itself around the rhythms of moving herds. Before we settle in, take a moment to like this if you enjoy these deep historical explorations, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I always find it fascinating how our global community gathers to explore these complex questions together. Now get comfortable, dim those lights. Tonight, we're not chasing dramatic conquests or heroic tales. Instead, we're going to examine something much quieter but equally remarkable: how the vast grasslands of Central Asia became humanity's ancient laboratory for mobile economics. Let's begin our gentle journey into the world of living wealth and seasonal wisdom. Picture, if you will, dawn breaking over the Altai Mountains in the 6th century. Mist rises from valleys where thousands of horses, sheep, and cattle begin their daily grazing. This is not the simple nomadism that history books often describe, but rather a sophisticated economic system that spanned from Mongolia to the Black Sea. The Turkic Khaganate, flourishing from 552 to 744 CE, created something remarkable: an economy where wealth itself could move, where seasonal cycles governed complex social hierarchies, and where the division of labor adapted to life in constant, purposeful motion. Tonight, we'll explore how these pastoral peoples developed intricate systems of tribal specialization, managed vast trade networks along the Silk Road, and created forms of mobile wealth that challenge our modern understanding of economics. We'll discover how blacksmiths worked iron in portable forges, how felt makers created the architecture of the steppes, and how the gentle rhythm of seasonal migrations coordinated the economic life of millions across the Eurasian grasslands. This is a story of quiet sophistication, of human adaptation to harsh environments, and of economic innovations that would influence civilizations for centuries to come. Let the peaceful rhythms of pastoral life carry you into deeper understanding of this remarkable civilization. In the gentle hours before dawn, when the first pale light begins to touch the endless grasslands of Central Asia, a profound economic revolution unfolds in the quietest possible way. The Turkic Khaganate, spanning the vast territories from the Altai Mountains to the distant shores of the Black Sea between 540 for CE, created one of history's most sophisticated pastoral economies through a concept that would challenge our modern understanding of wealth itself: the transformation of living animals into mobile capital. Picture, if you will, the morning mist rising from valleys where thousands of horses move in gentle herds, their breath creating small clouds in the crisp air. These animals represented far more than mere livestock to the Turkic peoples. They embodied a revolutionary economic principle that would sustain an empire across territories larger than most modern nations. Each horse, each sheep, each sturdy ox represented units of wealth that could walk, reproduce, and adapt to the changing seasons alongside their human stewards. The foundation of Turkic pastoral wealth rested upon this elegant solution to the fundamental challenge of steppe life: how to create and maintain prosperity in an environment where traditional agriculture offered limited possibilities. Unlike the static wealth of settled civilizations, locked in granaries and treasuries, Turkic wealth moved with the rhythm of the seasons, following ancient patterns of migration that had sustained human communities for millennia. The horses, those magnificent creatures that would become synonymous with Turkic power, served as the cornerstone of this mobile economy. Archaeological evidence from burial sites across the former Khaganate reveals the extraordinary care with which these animals were bred, trained, and maintained. Chinese diplomatic records describe Turkic herds numbering in the hundreds of thousands, each animal representing not merely transportation or military capability, but a living investment that could provide milk, meat, leather, and offspring in an endless cycle of renewal. Yet the sophistication of this system extended far beyond simple animal husbandry. The Turkic peoples developed intricate methods of managing what we might call mobile estates, vast collections of livestock that required careful coordination across enormous distances. Seasonal pasture rotation became a form of sophisticated resource management, with different tribal groups moving their herds according to carefully planned schedules that maximized grazing opportunities of any particular area. The gentle choreography of this movement reveals itself in the archaeological record through the patterns of temporary settlements, each positioned to take advantage of seasonal water sources and optimal grazing conditions. These sites, scattered across the steppes like beads on an invisible string, tell the story of communities that understood their environment with scientific precision, timing their movements to coincide with the blooming of specific grasses and the availability of fresh water. The decimal system of organization, inherited and refined from earlier Xiongnu traditions, provided the administrative framework for managing these vast mobile resources. Groups of 10 families formed the basic economic unit, with each responsible for specific aspects of herd management. 10 such groups formed 100, and 10 hundreds formed 1,000, creating a pyramid of responsibility that could coordinate the movement and care of millions of animals across continental distances. This system of mobile wealth creation represented a fundamental reimaging of economic principles. While settled civilizations measured prosperity in terms of land ownership and stored goods, the Turkic Khaganate created wealth that could adapt to environmental changes, migrate to new opportunities, and literally reproduce itself. The quiet wisdom of this approach becomes apparent when we consider the harsh realities of steppe life, where drought, severe winters, or political upheaval could devastate static wealth overnight. The integration of different animal species into this economic system demonstrated remarkable ecological understanding. Horses provided mobility and military advantage, but also served as a form of high-value currency in diplomatic and commercial exchanges. Sheep offered wool, milk, and meat, while their ability to graze on vegetation that horses could not digest made them perfect companions in the mobile economy. Cattle provided leather and additional food resources, while camels enabled long-distance trade across the most challenging terrain. Each morning, as herders across the vast Khaganate began their daily routines, they participated in an economic system that had solved fundamental problems of wealth creation and preservation in ways that would influence Central Asian societies for centuries to come. The gentle lowing of cattle, the soft bleating of sheep, and the proud whinnying of horses created a symphony of prosperity that moved across the grasslands like a living embodiment of economic innovation. The morning light filtered through the felt walls of countless yurts scattered across the vast steppes, revealing a society far more intricate than the simple herding communities often imagined by distant observers. Within the Turkic Khaganate, each tribal group had evolved into a specialized economic unit, their skills honed across generations into a sophisticated system of complementary production that sustained life across the harsh but beautiful grasslands of Central Asia. The 10-arrow system, established during the reign of his Khagan in the mid-6th century, represented not merely a political arrangement, but a carefully orchestrated economic symphony. Each arrow or tribal confederation had developed particular expertise that contributed to the whole, creating a network of interdependence that strengthened rather than constrained their nomadic freedom. The Ashane clan, holding the supreme position, coordinated this vast enterprise while specialized tribes maintained their ancestral crafts and knowledge systems. Among the most revered were the blacksmiths, whose portable forges traveled with the seasonal migrations, their skills passed down through bloodlines considered sacred. These artisans worked not only iron, but also the precious metals that flowed along the Silk Road, creating weapons, tools, and ornaments that embodied both function and beauty. The rhythmic hammering of metal against anvil provided a steady heartbeat to camp life, while the orange glow of forges created warm circles of light in the vast darkness of steppe nights. The felt makers, predominantly women, transformed the raw wool of countless sheep into the portable architecture that sheltered nomadic life. Their work required intimate knowledge of weather patterns, fiber qualities, and the subtle chemistry of felting skills that took decades to master. In the quiet hours before dawn, these artisans would begin their patient work, their hands moving with practiced precision as they created the walls, floors, and furnishings that would travel thousands of miles across the grasslands. Leather workers formed another essential guild, their expertise encompassing everything from the finest horse harnesses to the weather-resistant containers that preserved food and valuables during long migrations. The preparation of hides required perfect timing to early, and the leather would be weak, too late and it would be stiff and brittle. These craftsmen developed an almost mystical understanding of animal skins, able to predict the quality of leather from observing the living animal. The integration of captive artisans into this tribal economy revealed the Turkic genius for adaptation and inclusion. Skilled craftsmen taken in raids or acquired through trade were not merely enslaved, but gradually incorporated into the tribal structure, their foreign techniques blending with traditional steppe methods to create new innovations. Chinese silk weavers found their skills adapted to work with local materials, while Persian metal workers shared their knowledge of complex alloys and decorative techniques. So GDI and merchants, neither captives nor full tribal members, occupied a unique position within this economic ecosystem. These skilled traders, with their knowledge of languages, currencies, and market conditions across Eurasia, became the commercial nervous system of the Khaganate. They established permanent relationships with tribal leaders, often marrying into prominent families and creating hybrid communities that bridged the gap between nomadic and settled commercial practices. The seasonal rhythm of craft production reflected the deeper patterns of steppe life. Winter camps became centers of intensive manufacturing when the harsh weather confined communities to small areas and provided time for detailed work. The long, dark months were filled with the patient creation of goods that would be traded or used in the coming year. Women worked their looms by firelight, creating the intricate textiles that served both practical and ceremonial purposes, while men crafted weapons and tools in preparation to the active seasons ahead. Spring brought the great dispersal as communities spread across the awakening grasslands, and craft production became more focused on immediate needs, repairs to equipment, creation of temporary shelters, and the constant maintenance required by nomadic life. The mobile workshops that traveled with each group were marvels of efficiency, containing all the tools and materials needed for essential crafts in compact, portable forms. Summer gatherings provided opportunities for the exchange of specialized products between tribes, creating informal markets where the felt makers of one group might trade their wares for the metalwork of another. These exchanges were governed by complex protocols that balanced economic necessity with social relationships, ensuring that no group became too dependent on others while maintaining the cooperative bonds essential for survival. The autumn season brought intensive preparation for winter, with craft production focused on creating and repairing the goods needed for the harsh months ahead. This was the time when the most skilled artisans would create their finest work, knowing that the quality of their craftsmanship might determine their community's survival through the cold season. This intricate system of tribal specialization created a resilient economic network that could adapt to changing conditions while maintaining essential skills and knowledge. The quiet wisdom of generations had created not just a survival strategy, but a sophisticated civilization that thrived in one of the world's most challenging environments. Their success measured not in permanent monuments, but in the enduring rhythms of life itself. The ancient Silk Road was not merely a collection of trade routes, but a living network of human connections that pulsed with the rhythm of caravans crossing vast distances. Within this grand tapestry of commerce, the Turkic Khaganate emerged as both guardian and facilitator, transforming the steppes from a barrier into a bridge between civilizations. Their approach to managing trans-Asian trade revealed a sophisticated understanding of economics that went far beyond simple taxation, creating systems that would influence commercial practices for centuries to come. Picture the gentle morning light filtering through mountain passes where Turkic sentries maintained their quiet watch over the great trade corridors. These were not mere toll collectors, but administrators of a complex system that balanced the needs of merchants, the requirements of the state, and the delicate ecology of steppe politics. The Turkic Khaganate's control over key mountain passes and river crossings gave them unprecedented influence over the flow of goods between east and west. Yet they wielded this power with a nuanced understanding of how commerce truly functioned. The development of the Tamgos system represented one of the most elegant solutions to the challenges of governing mobile populations and transient merchants. These distinctive symbols, carved into metal seals and branded onto goods, serve multiple purposes within the Turkic economic framework. Each Tamga identified not only the owner of goods, but also their tribal affiliation, tax status, and commercial privileges. The quiet efficiency of this system becomes apparent when we consider how it enabled Turkic administrators to track and tax goods moving across thousands of miles of territory, all while maintaining the flexibility essential to nomadic governance. So GDI and merchants, with their remarkable linguistic abilities and commercial networks, became integral partners in the Turkic economic system. These skilled intermediaries spoke multiple languages and understood the cultural nuances of diverse trading partners, making them invaluable to Turkic rulers who sought to maximize commercial revenues without disrupting the delicate balance of international trade. The relationship between Turkic administrators and GDI and merchants exemplified a form of economic symbiosis that benefited both parties while facilitating the flow of goods across Eurasia. The seasonal rhythm of trade along the Silk Road created natural opportunities for the Turkic Khaganate to integrate their pastoral economy with commercial activities. During the warmer months, when mountain passes were clear and travel was relatively safe, caravans would time their journeys to coincide with the availability of fresh pastures for their animals. Turkic communities would establish temporary markets at strategic locations, offering not only protection and guides, but also fresh horses, dairy products, and locally produced goods to weary travelers. Archaeological evidence from trading posts and way stations reveals the sophisticated infrastructure that supported this commercial network. These sites, often located near natural water sources or at the confluence of major routes, featured facilities for both humans and animals. Stone-lined wells, corrals for livestock, and storage facilities for goods created oases of civilization in the vast steppes. The careful placement of these facilities demonstrates the Turkic understanding of how geography, climate, and human needs intersected to create successful commercial enterprises. The Turkic approach to taxation reflected their deep understanding of how excessive burdens could strangle trade, while insufficient revenues could weaken the state. Rather than imposing fixed rates, they developed flexible systems that took into account the value of goods, the distance traveled, and the current political situation. This nuanced approach required administrators who could assess the worth of exotic goods and negotiate with merchants who spoke different languages and followed different customs. Byzantine diplomatic correspondence provides fascinating glimpses into the complexity of Turkic trade policies. These documents reveal how Turkic rulers used commercial agreements as tools of diplomacy, offering favorable trading terms to allies while restricting access for potential enemies. The ability to control trade routes gave the Turkic Khaganate significant leverage in international relations, yet they generally used this power to encourage rather than restrict commerce. The integration of diverse commercial practices under Turkic rule created a unique synthesis of Eastern and Western trading customs. Chinese merchants brought their sophisticated credit systems and standardized weights and measures, while Persian and Byzantine traders contributed their own commercial innovations. The Turkic Khaganate served as a cultural laboratory where these different systems could interact and evolve, creating hybrid practices that were often more efficient than their individual components. The quiet negotiations between Turkic officials and foreign merchants took place in settings that reflected the mobile nature of steppe civilization. Rather than conducting business in permanent buildings, these discussions often occurred in felt tents that could be quickly assembled and disassembled as needed. The protocols governing these interactions balanced the formal requirements of international commerce with the informal traditions of nomadic hospitality, creating an atmosphere where business could be conducted efficiently while maintaining the social relationships essential to long-term commercial success. This sophisticated commercial system created wealth that flowed through Turkic society in ways that reinforced both social hierarchies and economic cooperation. The revenues from trade taxation supported the military forces that protected the routes, while also providing resources for the redistribution system that maintained tribal loyalty and social stability. The eternal rhythm of seasons shaped every aspect of Turkic economic life, creating a sophisticated calendar that synchronized human activity with the natural world's deepest patterns. As winter's grip gradually loosened across the vast steppes, the first subtle signs of spring would trigger a complex series of economic preparations that had been refined over countless generations. The Turkic peoples possessed an intimate understanding of these seasonal transitions, reading the landscape with the precision of scholars studying ancient texts. In the early months of spring, when the snow began its slow retreat from the southern slopes of the Altai Mountains, Turkic herders would begin the careful process of assessing their livestock's condition after the harsh winter months. This was not merely a matter of counting animals, but a sophisticated economic calculation that determined the entire year's possibilities. The survivors among the herds represented the foundation of all future wealth, and their health would dictate migration routes, trading opportunities, and the allocation of human resources across the vast confederation. The spring assessment involved elderly herders moving quietly among the animals, their experienced hands checking the condition of horses, cattle, sheep, and camels with the gentle precision of physicians. Each animal's weight, coat condition, and behavior provided crucial information about the community's economic prospects. A mare showing signs of pregnancy represented future wealth, while a weakened ox might need to be traded quickly before its value diminished further. These quiet evaluations, conducted in the pale light of dawn across countless camps, formed the basis of economic decisions that would affect thousands of people. As the grasslands began their transformation from winter brown to the first tentative green, the Turkic economic system would shift into its most dynamic phase. The timing of departure from winter camps required extraordinary precision, balancing the need for fresh pasture against the dangers of early spring weather. Too early a departure could expose vulnerable animals to late storms, while waiting too long might mean arriving at summer pastures after the optimal grazing period had begun. This decision-making process involved not just individual families but entire tribal confederations, as the movement of one group affected the availability of resources for all others. The spring migration itself represented one of humanity's most remarkable economic achievements, a coordinated movement of hundreds of thousands of animals and tens of people across distances that could span entire modern nations. The Turkic peoples had developed sophisticated systems for managing these movements, with advanced scouts identifying the best routes and grazing areas, while specialized herders managed different species according to their particular needs and capabilities. Horses, with their superior mobility, might range far ahead of the main group, while cattle and sheep moved in carefully managed formations that maximized grazing efficiency. Summer brought the season of abundance, when the steppes exploded into rich pastures that could support vast herds in optimal condition. This was the time when the Turkic economy reached its peak efficiency, with animals rapidly gaining weight and condition, while human communities engaged in the intensive activities that would sustain them through the coming year. The long daylight hours of the northern steppes allowed for extended periods of productive work. From the careful management of breeding programs to the creation of the textiles and tools that formed the foundation of nomadic material culture. During these summer months, the Turkic peoples would establish temporary but sophisticated settlements that served as economic and social centers for the scattered herding communities. These gatherings brought together specialized craftsmen, traders, and herders in a complex web of economic relationships that demonstrated the remarkable organizational capacity of nomadic societies. The gentle sounds of these summer assemblies, the rhythmic beating of felt making, the quiet conversations of traders examining goods, the soft lowing of cattle in nearby pastures created an atmosphere of peaceful productivity that sustained both individual families and the broader confederation. The approach of autumn triggered another fundamental shift in the Turkic economic calendar, as communities began the careful preparations necessary for winter survival. This season required perhaps the most sophisticated economic planning of the entire year, as herders had to balance the competing demands of maintaining animal condition, accumulating reserves for the harsh months ahead, and positioning themselves for optimal winter grazing areas. The autumn months were characterized by intensive activity, with communities working together to process meat, prepare dairy products for storage, and create the warm clothing and shelter materials that would be essential for survival. The transition to winter represented the most challenging period of the Turkic economic cycle, requiring careful resource management and community cooperation to ensure survival through the harsh steppe winters. The economic strategies developed for this season demonstrated remarkable sophistication, from the selection of sheltered valleys that provided protection from winter storms to the careful rationing of stored resources that would sustain both animals and humans through months of scarcity. The quiet efficiency of these winter communities, huddled in their felt-covered dwellings while storms raged across the steppes, represented one of humanity's most successful adaptations to extreme environmental conditions. This seasonal rhythm created a unique form of economic organization that integrated environmental constraints with human needs in ways that sustained large populations across vast territories for centuries. The Turkic understanding of seasonal cycles went far beyond simple weather prediction, encompassing a sophisticated knowledge of plant growth patterns, animal behavior, and the complex interactions between different species that shared the steppe environment. This knowledge was transmitted through generations of careful observation and practical experience, creating an economic system that was both remarkably efficient and environmentally sustainable. The gentle morning light filtering through the felt walls of the Khagan's great tent revealed a scene of quiet but profound economic coordination that had sustained the Turkic Khaganate for generations. Here, in this portable palace that could be dismantled and moved with the seasons, the supreme ruler of the steppes orchestrated a complex system of wealth distribution that bound together tribes scattered across thousands of miles of grassland. The Khagan's role transcended mere political leadership. He served as the central node in an intricate network of economic relationships that ensured the survival and prosperity of his people through the harsh realities of nomadic life. The morning ritual of the Khagan's court began before dawn, as trusted advisors and tribal representatives gathered to discuss the movement of herds, the allocation of pastures, and the distribution of resources accumulated through trade and tribute. Chinese diplomatic accounts describe these gatherings with a mixture of admiration and bewilderment, noting how decisions affecting thousands of people and millions of animals were made through quiet consultation and consensus building rather than imperial decree. The Khaganate tent served as both throne room and counting house, where the wealth of the steppes was carefully tracked and redistributed according to ancient customs to prioritize the collective welfare of the Confederation. The concept of the generosity economy lay at the heart of Turkic social organization, creating a system where wealth flowed continuously through the tribal hierarchy rather than accumulating in static hordes. Archaeological evidence from elite burial sites reveals the paradox of nomadic wealth. Khaganate tribal leaders were historical accounts consistently described their willingness to give away vast quantities of goods to maintain loyalty and ensure the survival of their followers. This redistribution system operated on multiple levels, from the Khaganate's grand gestures of largesse to the daily sharing of resources within individual camps, creating a social safety net that could withstand the periodic famines and disasters that plagued steppe life. The integration of slaves and captives into this economic system demonstrates the sophisticated nature of Turkic social organization. Rather than simply exploiting conquered peoples, the Khaganate developed mechanisms for incorporating diverse populations into the pastoral economy while maintaining social cohesion. Skilled artisans captured in raids were often elevated to positions of respect within the tribal hierarchy, their specialized knowledge becoming valuable assets that enhanced the Confederation's economic capabilities. Byzantine sources describe Turkic delegations that included former captives who had risen to positions of trust and authority, their expertise in metalworking, textiles, or languages making them indispensable to the nomadic state. The role of royal women in economic management reveals another dimension of Turkic social complexity. The Khaganate's wives and female relatives controlled vast herds and managed the domestic economy of the royal household, which often included hundreds of dependents and thousands of animals. These women operated their own redistribution networks, using their wealth to maintain alliances with other noble families and to support craftspeople and specialists who served the court. The quiet authority of these women extended beyond the domestic sphere into the broader economic life of the Confederation, as they negotiated marriages, managed trade relationships, and coordinated the seasonal movements of their extensive households. The creation of loyalty networks through economic patronage formed the backbone of Turkic political stability. The Khaganate's ability to reward faithful service with grants of livestock, access to prime pastures, or shares in trade revenues created a web of mutual obligation that held the Confederation together across vast distances. These relationships were maintained through regular assemblies where tribal leaders gathered to renew their oaths of loyalty and receive their share of the Confederation's wealth. The careful balance between generosity and authority, between central coordination and tribal autonomy, required constant attention and adjustment, as the survival of the entire system depended on maintaining the delicate equilibrium between competing interests and limited resources. The seasonal assemblies that punctuated the nomadic calendar served as crucial moments for economic redistribution and social reinforcement. As autumn approached and the tribes prepared for the harsh winter months, these gatherings became festivals of generosity where the Khaganate demonstrated his wealth and wisdom through carefully orchestrated displays of largesse. The redistribution of goods at these assemblies followed ancient protocols that ensured each tribe received resources appropriate to their needs and contributions, while also reinforcing the social hierarchy that gave structure to nomadic society. The peaceful nature of these gatherings, where potential conflicts were resolved through negotiation and gift exchange rather than violence, created a model of governance that sustained the Confederation through centuries of environmental and political challenges. The gentle rhythm of daily craft work in nomadic camps created a peaceful counterpoint to the dramatic movements of herds across vast steppes. Within the Turkic Khaganate, the production of material goods represented not merely economic necessity, but a sophisticated system of portable artistry that could travel with communities across thousands of miles. The soft sounds of women working felt, the rhythmic hammering of blacksmiths, and the quiet concentration of leather workers formed the industrial heartbeat of a civilization that carried its workshops on horseback. The role of women in textile production extended far beyond simple domestic necessity, encompassing the creation of the very architecture within which nomadic life unfolded. In the pre-dawn hours, when camps stirred to life across the steppes, women would begin their patient work with felt, transforming raw sheep's wool into the portable walls that defined Turkic domestic space. The process itself embodied the nomadic genius for adaptation. Wool was cleaned, beaten, and gradually compressed through careful application of moisture and pressure, creating dense, weather-resistant material that could be quickly assembled into yurts or packed for transport. The intricate patterns woven into these felt pearls served not merely decorative purposes, but functioned as markers of tribal identity, family lineage, and social status within the broader confederation. Archaeological evidence from Turkic burial sites reveals the sophisticated nature of textile production, with fragments of silk, wool, and felt displaying complex weaving techniques and integrated influences from Chinese, Persian, and Byzantine traditions. The discovery of elaborate textile tools, spindles carved from bone, wooden looms designed for portability, and metal implements for felt production suggest that Turkic craftswomen possessed technical knowledge comparable to their settled contemporaries. Yet these tools were specifically adapted for nomadic life, designed to be lightweight, durable, and easily transported across seasonal migration routes. The integration of foreign techniques and materials into Turkic craft production demonstrates the sophisticated nature of steppe commercial networks. Silk threads acquired through trade with Chinese merchants were skillfully incorporated into traditional wool textiles, creating hybrid fabrics that combined the durability of steppe materials with the luxury of settled civilizations. Persian dyeing techniques were adapted to work with locally available plants and minerals, producing the rich colors that distinguish Turkic textiles in international markets. This technological synthesis occurred not through conquest or forced adoption, but through the peaceful exchange of knowledge between craftspeople from different cultural backgrounds. Metalworking represented another crucial aspect of Turkic material culture, with blacksmiths occupying positions of particular respect within nomadic society. The production of weapons, tools, and decorative objects required not only technical skill, but also access to raw materials that were often scarce on the steppes. Turkic smiths developed innovative techniques for working with limited resources, creating portable forges that could be quickly assembled and disassembled as communities moved. The gentle glow of these mobile workshops, scattered across temporary settlements, marked centers of technological innovation where iron was transformed into the implements that sustained nomadic life. The creation of distinctive Turkic artistic styles in metalwork reflected both practical necessity and aesthetic sophistication. Weapons were not merely functional tools, but expressions of cultural identity, decorated with intricate patterns that incorporated both traditional steppe motifs and influences from neighboring civilizations. The famous Turkic belt plaques, discovered in archaeological sites across Central Asia, demonstrate the high level of artistic achievement possible within nomadic craft production. These small metal objects, often depicting stylized animals or geometric patterns, served as portable galleries of Turkic artistic expression, traveling with their owners across vast distances and serving as markers of cultural identity in diverse social contexts. The integration of captive artisans into the Turkic economic system created opportunities for technological transfer that enriched steppe material culture. Skilled craftspeople from conquered settlements were often incorporated into nomadic communities, where their specialized knowledge was adapted to meet the unique requirements of mobile life. Chinese silk workers Persian metalworkers and Byzantine jewelers found themselves creating new forms of artistic expression that combined their traditional techniques with the aesthetic preferences and practical needs of their nomadic patrons. This process of cultural synthesis occurred gradually and peacefully, as foreign artisans established families and communities within the broader Turkic Confederation. The seasonal nature of craft production created rhythms that harmonized with the broader patterns of nomadic life. During summer months, when communities gathered in rich pastures, intensive craft production would occur as people had time and resources to devote to creating goods for trade or personal use. Winter months, when communities were or dispersed and focused on survival, saw the production of essential items, repairs to equipment, creation of warm clothing, and preparation of materials for the coming year. This seasonal variation in craft production created natural cycles of abundance and conservation that reflected the deeper rhythms of steppe life. The creation of portable luxury goods for elite consumption represented a sophisticated understanding of how material culture could express social hierarchy within nomadic society. Elaborate horse harnesses, decorated weapons, or merely as displays of wealth, but as instruments of political power, creating visual languages that communicated status and authority across cultural boundaries. The patient work required to create these objects, the careful application of gold leaf to leather, the intricate carving of bone and horn, the delicate embroidery of silk threads represented investments of time and skill that transformed raw materials into symbols of leadership and cultural achievement. Through the gentle persistence of daily craft work, Turkic communities created material cultures that were both distinctively nomadic and remarkably sophisticated, establishing traditions of portable artistry that would influence steppe civilizations for centuries to come. The relationship between the Turkic Khaganate's nomadic heartland and its settled agricultural peripheries reveals one of history's most sophisticated examples of economic integration across fundamentally different ways of life. As morning light filtered through the wooden lattice of a yurt overlooking the Chu River Valley, Turkic administrators would have gazed upon a landscape that embodied this remarkable synthesis: mobile camps dotting the hillsides, while permanent settlements clustered around irrigation channels below, each contributing essential elements to a unified economic system. The Turkic approach to governing agricultural communities differed markedly from the extractive policies of many nomadic conquerors. Rather than simply demanding tribute, the Khaganate developed nuanced administrative systems that recognized the cyclical nature of agricultural production. In the oasis cities of the Tarim Basin, Turkic governors worked alongside local administrators to coordinate harvest schedules with the seasonal movements of pastoral communities. This timing was crucial as herders descended from summer pastures in autumn. They arrived precisely when agricultural communities had surplus grain to trade for animal products, creating natural market rhythms that benefited both economies. The integration process required delicate cultural negotiations, so GDI and merchants, serving as intermediaries, helped bridge the gap between nomadic and sedentary worldviews. In cities like Samarkand and Bukhara, Turkic officials established dual taxation systems. Pastoral communities contributed livestock and dairy products during seasonal assemblies, while agricultural settlements provided grain, textiles, and craft goods according to harvest cycles. This flexibility acknowledged that different economic systems operated on different temporal frameworks, requiring administrative patience and cultural sensitivity. Archaeological evidence from sites like Akbishim reveals the physical manifestation of this integration. Excavations have uncovered compound structures where permanent buildings housed administrative functions and seasonal storage, while adjacent areas provided space for temporary camps during tribal gatherings. These hybrid settlements served as economic nodes where pastoral and agricultural products were exchanged, processed, and redistributed across the vast Khaganate. The careful urban planning suggests sophisticated understanding of how different economic communities could coexist while maintaining their distinct identities. The Turkic administration's success stemmed partly from their recognition that agricultural communities possessed specialized knowledge valuable to the broader economy. Oasis farmers had developed irrigation techniques, crop rotation systems, and storage methods adapted to arid environments. Rather than disrupting these practices, Turkic governors incorporated them into wider economic planning. During years of abundant rainfall, agricultural surpluses could support larger pastoral populations during droughts. Stored grain provided security for both communities. This reciprocal relationship created resilience that neither economy could achieve alone. Chinese sources describe the careful protocols governing these interactions. Tang Dynasty records note how Turkic officials would arrive at agricultural settlements with advance notice, allowing farmers to prepare appropriate hospitality and organize their contributions. These visits followed seasonal patterns. Spring inspections coincided with planting, summer visits monitored crop development, and autumn gatherings celebrated harvests while collecting taxes. The rhythmic nature of these interactions created predictability that both communities could plan around, fostering stability across diverse economic zones. The integration extended beyond mere economic exchange to encompass cultural and technological transfer. Turkic craftsmen learned irrigation techniques from settled communities, while agricultural populations adopted improved animal husbandry methods from pastoral experts. In workshops located at the boundaries between nomadic and settled zones, artisans combined techniques from both traditions, creating distinctive hybrid technologies. Felt making incorporated agricultural fibers, while metalworking benefited from both pastoral iron sources and agricultural fuel supplies. Women played crucial roles in facilitating this integration. Turkic noble women often married into local elite families in agricultural regions, creating kinship networks that bridged economic systems. These marriages weren't merely political alliances, but practical arrangements that facilitated knowledge transfer and economic coordination. Through these relationships, seasonal migration patterns could be adjusted to complement agricultural cycles, while farming communities gained access to pastoral products and protection. The Khaganate's approach to religious and cultural diversity reflected this economic pragmatism. Buddhist monasteries in agricultural regions received pastoral patronage, while Tengrist shrines in nomadic areas welcomed agricultural offerings. This religious tolerance wasn't merely philosophical, but economically rational. Shared sacred spaces provided neutral ground for economic negotiations and cultural exchange. Seasonal festivals often coincided with economic gatherings, creating social bonds that strengthened commercial relationships. As political pressures eventually fragmented the Khaganate, these integrated economic systems demonstrated remarkable resilience. Local communities had developed such interdependent relationships that they continued cooperating, even as central authority weakened. The economic patterns established during the Turkic period persisted through subsequent political changes, suggesting that successful integration had created lasting structural foundations. Modern archaeological surveys continue revealing evidence of these enduring connections, trade routes, irrigation systems, and settlement patterns that reflect the Turkic legacy of economic integration across diverse landscapes and lifestyles. As we reach the gentle conclusion of our journey through the Turkic Khaganate's pastoral economy, we find ourselves standing at the edge of understanding, where the vast stretch endlessly toward horizons that blur the boundaries between earth and sky. The sophisticated economic systems we have explored reveal themselves not as distant historical curiosities, but as profound expressions of human wisdom, carefully adapted to the rhythms of nature and the eternal cycles of seasonal change. The Turkic peoples created something remarkable in their mobile civilization, an economic system that flowed like water across the grasslands, adapting to every contour of the landscape while maintaining its essential character. Their tribal divisions of labor were not rigid hierarchies, but flexible networks of cooperation, where blacksmithies and felt makers, herders and merchants all contributed their specialized skills to the greater harmony of nomadic life. This was economics as poetry, where wealth moved with the seasons and prosperity was measured not in accumulated possessions, but in the health of herds and the strength of community bonds. The gentle wisdom of their seasonal cycles speaks to something deep within the human spirit, the recognition that true prosperity comes not from fighting against natural rhythms, but from learning to dance with them. As spring brought the gradual greening of pastures and the movement of herds toward summer grazing grounds, so too did their economic activities follow these ancient patterns, each season bringing its own gifts and requirements, its own opportunities for cooperation and growth. In the quiet moments between our exploration of trade routes and craft production, we can sense the profound peace that must have settled over the steppes at evening when the day's work was done and families gathered around their fires. The soft sounds of animals settling for the night, the gentle murmur of conversation, the crackling of dry dung fires, these were the sounds of a civilization that had found its rhythm, that had learned to live in harmony with both the harsh demands and generous gifts of the grasslands. The Turkic integration of diverse economic systems, pastoral and agricultural, nomadic and settled, offers us a mode and adaptation that feels increasingly relevant in our modern world. They understood that true strength comes not from rigidity, but from the ability to bend without breaking, to maintain essential values while adapting to changing circumstances. Their economic network stretched across continents, yet remained grounded in the fundamental human needs for shelter, sustenance, and community. As we allow these historical insights to settle gently into our consciousness, we can feel the peaceful weight of centuries, the accumulated wisdom of countless generations who roamed to tend their herds, who followed the ancient migration routes with the changing seasons, who created beauty and meaning in the midst of vast, seemingly empty landscapes. Their legacy reminds us that human ingenuity and cooperation can flourish anywhere, that even the harshest environments can nurture sophisticated civilizations when people work together with patience and understanding. The soft rhythm of hoofbeats on ancient grass, the gentle lowing of cattle at dawn, the whispered conversations of herders planning the day's journey, these sounds seem to echo across the centuries, carrying with them the essence of a way of life that honored both individual skill and collective wisdom. In this peaceful echo, we find not just historical knowledge, but a deeper understanding of what it means to live in harmony with the natural world and with one another. Let yourself drift now into the vast, peaceful expanse of the steppes, where the horizon stretches endlessly and the sky holds infinite possibilities. Feel the gentle breeze that carries the scent of grass and the distant sound of grazing animals. In this timeless landscape, where the Turkic peoples once created their mobile civilization, you can rest in the knowledge that human wisdom and cooperation have always to flourish, creating beauty and meaning wherever they have touched the earth.